Hello, sumo fans. We're back.
We made it back.
This felt a lot longer than last time, and you corrected me and said because it started earlier, so...
Yes, so in July it was a week earlier, I'm pretty sure, just to get around the Olympic Games. But sometimes they will do that normally, that it's sort of like a week earlier, a week later, I don't pretend to know. And we haven't done a sit-down session.
Longer than that.
So... yeah, there's definitely sort of a building of excitement today when I realized, oh, we're going to be back in it.
Yeah, I almost forgot how this whole thing works. So, why don't we start from the top, as we always do, with Hakuho. I want to start off by saying I'm very happy that we're still talking about Hakuho. I was crossing my fingers that he was going to do great and not retire, because I want him to be in this thing as long as possible. I mean, as we all saw, it's a different sumo, it's a different tournament, it's a different world with Hakuho in it, and so I want him in it as long as humanly possible. So, he was the winner, 15-0, epic battle with Terunofuji at the end, and now we start all over again with him not even doing practice bouts yet. What do you think's going to happen with that?
So... I will agree that life in sumo without Hakuho could be a little hollow. I do think Hakuho's choice should be that he should be gone. Like, he should just call it right here and now. That being said, if we get even one more day of Hakuho shenanigans, all worth it. So, it's one of those things, it's a win-win for me. Now, I was really convinced that the Hakuho that we saw in July... we will not see again. And so now for me, the question for Hakuho is, will lightning strike twice? It did feel like there was, everything was culminating up to that point in Hakuho's mind. And the way that he reacted to the wins that he got. He did the fist pump on the last day, and also was telling day one against Meisei. He got pretty hyped about that win too. So I'm curious how Hakuho is going to be when he doesn't have that need to prove again.
Right, he's sort of on the downward spiral of this anticipation. He knows what he can do, at least what he could do in July, and he's got nothing left to prove. He beat the next Yokozuna to be. He could never wrestle again, and he proved his point. And, added to that, this is sort of the weird thing, but also the Hakuho shenanigans that I can't help but bring up. The whole goal was for him to make it to the Olympics. And the first thing that happened was he wanted to make it to the Olympics for his dad, who was an Olympic champion. His dad dies before 2020. Then coronavirus hits. There is no Olympics. So now Hakuho's whole perfect plan gets thrown up in the air, and he's got to compete all the way to 2021. Well, he makes it to the Olympics, but they decide, due to everything going on, there will be no sumo presence leading people in like there had been precedents for in the past. And they weren't going to let Hakuho go. So what does Hakuho do? And I'm sorry, I have to laugh. I think it's extremely funny. Being a former Mongolian citizen, he just goes and talks to the Mongolians and they let him in. And he takes some pictures and he gets scolded yet again by the Sumo Association. That alone is enough for me to want to see Hakuho around. I mean, maybe it's wrong, but it's just funny and exciting and interesting. So, I don't know. I thought it was great.
Well, towards your earlier point, no one else is going to do this.
No one.
And, no one else is going to do this and then get away with it.
Right.
You can't, what are you going to do to Hakuho? What are you going to bench him? You can't.
You can't do anything. He's
untouchable.
You can't
do to him. All he can do is yell at him. So that's what they've been doing. And so that aspect of it, yes, let's have Hakuho around for another 3 years if that's what we're going to get out of it.
You get a certain game going with how angry can the sumo council get at Hakuho.
Yeah. I mean, it's already... there's already blood in that water because they did the whole thing early, and we've talked about this, that they said, oh, no elder stock on Hakuho's name, and Hakuho has been just for me, looking back on that, what can they do for Hakuho now? Because it's
they drew the first sword when they did that. That was wrong, and now they kind of deserve anything Hakuho is going to do to them.
That's kind of how I'm feeling. I mean, Hakuho is up to his bag of tricks sometimes, and every once in a while I'd be like, come on, dude.
Did you have to do that?
From now on?
Let him do what he wants to do.
I'm just saying. You can't. You open that door. But in terms of fighting, I am going to be curious what shape he's in. As you had mentioned in the combo practice, he was just doing exercises. I think he just wanted his presence to be felt, but probably didn't feel like he had the oomph to throw people around. That, read into that as you may, I guess.
Right. It could be his mind games that he plays. It could be that he's not quite ready. He might just sit out this tournament again and play the games he's playing with the Sumo Council and say, maybe I'll see you in November. You just literally don't know what this guy's going to do.
Yeah. It is actually, on one hand, you can see Hakuho wanting to sort of put a little dirt on Terunofuji to sort of be like, just remember who did. Now, he did that already, but his victory was legitimate, but at the same time, it's like they both won. Exactly. So to put Terunofuji in his place on his first run as Yokozuna, like I could see that being interesting. At the same time, maybe Hakuho sits this one out, lets Terunofuji have his day in the sun, then comes back once the hype's died down.
And that would be very consistent with something Hakuho would do.
You can read that script backwards, forwards.
It's going to be a toss-up, no matter what. So now we will go to the man of the hour, Terunofuji. He was 14-1, the runner-up. The Cinderella story has finally come full circle, and now we have opened a brand new chapter book. That's probably one of the most exciting things we've seen in a while. Not since Tochinoshin becoming Ozeki have we had something to really get excited and root for and, feel confident that, none of the Ozekis had materialized to be an actual Yokozuna. So to see this actually go the way it's supposed to go, it's exciting and it's full of wonder, and I just can't wait to see him do his first ceremony there. I have seen online, his first ceremony at the shrine and receiving his belt and everything, or the rope. But I'm looking forward to seeing him do it in the tournament, and I'm looking forward to seeing him be a Yokozuna because he deserves it.
It's the feel-good story of this particular frame of time. I was going to say era, but that's probably a little too broad. Everybody likes Terunofuji. Everybody loves watching him fight. Everybody is you're inspired. And it is basically what you said was what I was going to say in a way, that now it's a new chapter. It's this new story. So we're in this weird, almost happily ever after. Mm-hmm. And so, on one hand, we're like, yes, Terunofuji did it. And we're just all this positive energy. But at the same time, it's this weird sensation, this is the part in the Disney movie where, you see the end and the credits roll and,
It's a bonus scene or something?
Is there is this a Marvel movie or it's a bonus scene? Or is this going to be, one of those old school Disney movies that's like, we're done. We're done, goodbye. Yeah, right. And it's almost this sensation of mystery, I guess I'll say, that now we're like, we ran the script. Sequel?
Yeah, right.
What do we do? Gotta call my agent. Don't know what's happening now.
Yeah, I really do have the giant question mark myself, because what he's capable of, what he's been doing. He deserves to be Yokozuna, but we have to actually see it happen. Yeah,
it feels almost like he doesn't have to do anything anymore.
Right, he's done the whole thing.
He's done, but at the same time, you're like, wait a minute. What can we do with this?
Right.
What is this a dynasty now? Is he just going to thrash people? Or is he just going to be done?
Right, is it going to be he wrestles for the next 5 years and he wins every single tournament for the next 5 years and no one can ever top him? Do we go that far? Or is it a Kisara Sato?
Yeah, there's good and bad to this. I am... just the idea of it has me, shaking in my seat. I'm trying not to shake too much and make noise.
Well, we will see what comes to be with Terunofuji. He doesn't go to the practice sessions or anything like that, so he kind of remains a mystery in what we'll say is the sumo off-season. So next, the guy who is no mystery would be Shodai. He has gone up to Ozeki 1 East only because he's the only surviving Ozeki of the last tournament. And he squeaked by with an 8-7. This guy, his whole deal's on the line. He was very shaky in practice, and he even got yelled at by his coach, just right out there. And he's got kind of the Eeyore thing going where it's like, I wasn't good today. I don't know. My style of sumo. Guy, get it together.
Yeah, we need more Tigger and less Eeyore.
Exactly. Get some bounce in your step.
There's this weird Ozeki evacuation that sort of happened to Shodai. So he has whatever internal pressure is going on, sure. And being Ozeki was never a cakewalk. Walk in the cake park, whatever. So we already knew that Shodai was sort of buckling a little bit. Then we have Terunofuji going up, Asanoyama going down, Takakeisho going somewhere, and all of a sudden Shodai is basically the only Ozeki. So this is sort of what Takakeisho's burden was this time last year, but the thing is, with Takakeisho, we're he can handle it. It's a lot, but he'll figure it out. With Shodai, we're
can he handle being the only guy?
Oh boy, is he gonna... It's bad news. So there's even more pressure on Shodai now with just him holding down this fort, and he wasn't able to hold this down when there was others with him.
Right, and it's interesting because when we talk about the new chapter book, this is the first time. The Ozeki woes have been going on since the days of Goeido and Takayasu. This is the first time where a guy actually got out of Ozeki and went to Yokozuna.
Yes.
So instead of just everybody dropping out like what happened to Takakeisho, you actually have somebody who did what you're supposed to do in Ozeki and get promoted. And then, you've got Asanoyama, who we'll get to, and then you have Takakeisho. I mean, if Shodai can't deliver, we're going to be back to no Ozekis again.
It's a very real possibility, and unfortunately, since we're fresh out of Ozeki candidates at the moment, I don't consider Mitakeumi an Ozeki candidate.
No,
actually, he's 8-7, so he wouldn't be anyway.
Right, it would take a while for anybody to actually muster something. So Shodai has the pressure of he's got to keep the Ozeki rank alive, not just I got to be the guy. You got to keep it going for everybody else. So this is kind of the downside to Shodai, is he might not be the guy.
He might be the guy, and he's the last one holding the bag. So
yikes, poor Ozekis. And when I choose I said I'll never choose a favorite again. Most certainly, if I feel tempted, it will not be an Ozeki candidate. I like the lower guys or the higher guys. I can't do this Ozeki thing anymore. Which brings us to my greatest heartache and pain, Takakeisho. He got that terrifying bulging disc injury against Ichinojo. When I saw it happen, I thought to myself, I don't see how he comes back from it. I think he will try. It's possible he sits this tournament out, but that's a serious injury. It's not serious enough to most certainly end your career, but it's serious enough that it could. That's not something... It's your neck, for goodness sakes. There's plenty of people that just couldn't fight on after hurting their neck. And he has all these other injuries, and now he goes dark all the time. We've heard nothing about his training. We've heard nothing about his condition. We know nothing. As much as I don't want to say this, I wouldn't be too surprised if Takakeisho does not come back from this. I don't want to say necessarily his sumo career over, but I don't know if he can maintain Ozeki with this kind of injury. But some of that is the fact that we get no information about him. All we have is the visual of that injury, the sound of that injury, and then nothing. So I don't know if my mind's going crazy, but I don't have a good feeling about it.
It's a bad one, like you said. It's anything like that. It can take surgery. It can take a long time, and because we don't know anything about how that's been faring. So maybe he just jumped on that as soon as he needed to, got everything cleaned up, and he's just in rehab right now. Or maybe he's still in a bad spot. Worth noting that Takanosho showed up to combo practice, which would mean either that Takakeisho isn't in shape to be a viable opponent. Now there's some pragmatic, like maybe Takanosho just wanted to go. Like,
right.
Could be very simple. But if Takakeisho does show up, he's not going to have his A game. So he's just going to be scraping for 8 wins to save rank. And if he doesn't show up, which we kind of, in a way, I kind of hope he doesn't. Right. Because that means that he's taking the time off to heal. And in the past, that has done him favors.
Right.
So then he will be down to Sekiwake and need the 10 wins. I think that if he sits out and he heals and he rests, in November he'll get back to Ozeki. So I always like seeing him, but at the same time, it's like, if you're not in shape,
don't come.
Don't
wreck your whole life. I mean, you get a neck injury, forget sumo. You're not going to be able to have a good quality of life.
Yeah, well.
But, I think this is fair to say, no matter what, Shodai is probably going to be the last remaining Ozeki. Because, like you said, if Takakeisho does show up, he's going to be scraping by. If he doesn't show up, he's Ozeki Waki. So I think it's a high likelihood Shodai is fighting to be the last Ozeki standing.
Yeah.
And, I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope, Takakeisho has a miracle recovery and everything's great and everything goes right back to normal. Yeah. But that is a fantasy that I'm not willing to actually dive into because that will hurt my heart too much. So I'm going to go negative on this one and just hope I'm wrong. Which brings us to Mitakeumi, who we dump on a lot. He did go to the practice sessions. On the first day, he was kind of dogging it. And he got called out. I guess the second day, which we're not able to see, because it doesn't post, they just post the first day. Apparently he did much better and was much more energetic, and he had made some statements. I'm not going to say what they are, because I'll let you go to Chris Sumo's video to get his recap. But he made some statements that might suggest that he is working on some things, and he is having some self-awareness about himself. And maybe... John, you're shaking your head. I just want to be optimistic.
Go.
Maybe.
Sorry, go.
Maybe we'll see a new Mitakeumi who realizes there's a lot of Ozeki slots open. But, I don't know.
For me, what will set a fire under Mitakeumi, it's not going to be what's above him, it's what's going to be what's below him. Because we've got, and we're going to talk about this, I'm very, very pleased with this Banzuke, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that happened that I am...
Unlike the last one, this one's actually a good one.
There's I'll get into it. I am very... when I was writing this out for our notes, I looked at a few things, I'm like, oh, Christmas is several months early. But for Mitakeumi, it's going to be Meisei, it's going to be Hoshoryu, it's going to be Kiribayama, it's the people barking at his back. And if that doesn't get a rise out of him, then...
It's just never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. And again, Sekiwake 1 East, you're the 5th best sumo wrestler in the world.
Right, if you don't need any more motivation, if you're happy, having that situation, then he's going to stay there forever.
He's going to stay there. And there's going to be nothing that anybody can do. And, well, again, what's also interesting, we have all this drama, all these people falling up and down. Shodai's losing his mind. Takayasu has a back injury at the worst possible moment. And Mitakeumi's just holding that line. Mm-hmm. So there is a value in being the career Sanyaku.
Yeah.
It's just... frustrating as hell knowing that he could have
had more.
And
realistically, we need an Ozeki, so it'd be nice if somebody took the job, which we're going to talk about now. Meisei, he's up to Sekiwake 1 West, up from Komusumi 1 West. They actually opened up an extra Sekiwake spot for him, which is excellent.
This was the first thing I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Because, there's a reality where they just say, sorry.
What it is.
Just what it is, but they're like, no, let's open up the second Sekiwake slot, for him. So we have 2 of those. That sort of gives Meisei his rise up. Something else that I heard in a Chris Sumo video before is that one of Meisei's goals was to surpass his coach in rank. I think his coach only got to Kamasubi, so him getting the Sekiwake has a certain amount of nice finality for him. So Meisei is also in sort of, he's completed his goal.
He's completed his goal, and he has the hunger that some of these other guys lack. Does he have the skill to make up for it? We're going to find out. I do fear that he's a little on the small side, and he's still a little rough around the edges, but he's been my dark horse pick for a while, so I do believe he's capable, but I don't know if he's ready yet.
Yeah, the 8 and 7 that he had, he scraped by. I think he got the 8th one on the last day. So what was interesting also is that it was Meisei and then Wakatakakage, and everybody was like, Wakatakakage's got this, he's got this. And then Wakatakakage gets a target on his back. Uh-huh. Everybody goes after him. And then Meisei squeaks by. It's just like, is Meisei going to have the target now? Or everybody's still sleeping on Meisei and he's just going to come and get a 9 and 6 on you?
Which would be awesome, because now is the time for somebody to put together an Ozeki run.
Yeah.
But make us believe it, man. We've been burned before by certain people who shall not be named. Come on, make it count.
Yeah. So we're in this interesting spot that Meisei is as viable a candidate for Ozeki as everyone else.
Yeah.
Because he's in Sanyaku.
Exactly.
And he's gotten his Kachikoshi in Sanyaku, which is very difficult to do on the first try.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. He's done a little bit better than the usual guy who makes a Sanyaku debut, which you would hope that would be enough to be a sign of something better.
So keep a side eye on Meisei. I always say the first 7 matches don't matter, but for Meisei it's gonna be a barometer check.
Yeah, you got to see where he's at.
And if he can get a good enough number of wins in those opening days, then maybe some to this.
The cautiously optimistic.
Cautious. Don't look at him too much.
Right. Just peek.
The watch Meisei never boils.
Exactly. So next we come to Asanoyama, which we all know, he's just going to fall. So there's usually not anything to say. But his bad fortunes are something I did want to talk about because it just seemed like it shouldn't be ignored. So he breaks all the rules. He's out at this hostess club month after month after month. And then he gets COVID after he's caught, after he's locked down in his stable. Now, if that wasn't a bad dose of irony right there. But then Chris Sumo reported that his dad died suddenly. And honestly, I think about it like sometimes life can mess you up and punish you worse than any person can. The fact that he has to live with the fact that his dad will never know if he made it back to Ozeki is a really bitter pill to swallow. And I really feel for the guy. And I hope for him as a person that there are people taking care of him, because you could really lose hope in a situation like this. You're isolated as it is. You've lost your Ozeki career, and maybe you can get through all of that if you can call your dad on the phone. He can't call his dad on the phone. His dad was the one who encouraged him to keep going. This is just something that is way worse than anything Sumo could throw at him, anything worse than society could throw at him. And I sincerely hope that he's got people in his life that are going to help him through this, because there's next to nothing worse than that. There really isn't.
I'd only had 2 notes for Asanoyama. One, we'd already covered that. I'm glad that they opened the second Sekiwake slot for him as sort of a courtesy to everyone else. And also this is something that transcends. And sort of just echoing your point, like, controversy or no, caught up in the scandal or not, it's just, that sucks. Because something that's easily forgotten is how young these kids are. Yeah. And so...
his dad had to be relatively young.
His dad was younger, and also he's 28, 29.
Right. That's still a kid in this world, you know?
That's not old enough to be ready for it.
Exactly. And it was a sudden death. It wasn't like he was sick and Asanoyama was processing it. You know, you just get the phone call. Or somebody showed up to his stable to tell him. And, you know, I speak from personal experience. I went through it myself. That is the worst day of your life. When you get that call or that person shows up at your stable. And I think about him. I just think and I hope. Because sumo's not like... If some athlete here lost their dad, you'd hear about it on the news like every night. You would know about them on social media. You would be able to kind of check a little bit on the person. We probably won't hear a thing about Asanoyama unless Chris goes and does some work for us. Hopefully there'll be statements or something, but I can't help but feel just empty about it. And I just hope the right people are around him to take care of him. And, you know, who knows? He may not even continue with sumo after something like this. His father was a motivator for him to go all the way down and try to do this again. Maybe his death will be a motivator too, but it's just a lot. It's a lot for a young person. It's a lot for anybody. And, you know, like you said, this transcends sumo and he'll never hear it, but my condolences to him. I feel really bad.
It's a rough time. It will also, towards your point, shape the Asanoyama that comes back.
He's going to be a different guy.
And, gosh, it's going to be, hopefully we see him. Hopefully we get to see this new Asanoyama on the other side. But for now, I'm just going to tell him, just in a way, this is sort of like a blessing in disguise that he doesn't need to worry about the media. He doesn't need to worry about training. He can sort of take the time and deal with this. Now, he's still dealing with everything involved with his stable and stuff like that, but he doesn't need to be in training shape. And, you know, at least for a little while until he can sort of wrap his head around this.
Exactly. So, wish you the best of luck, and we will see what happens when the fall finally ends and there's an upward trajectory coming. On to Takayasu, who got a 7 and 8. He lost his Zozeki run again, but they only dropped him down to Komusumi 1 East. I thought that was a nice move.
Nice move.
It was nice that they were a little bit more forgiving of people this time around, unlike the last one where it was a little wonky. Takayasu's been through a lot and could really use just, you know, at least stay in Sanyaku, give him the motivation to start another Ozeki run again. He is running out of time if he wants to be an Ozeki. He's got to put together, 3 more tournaments now?
At minute, well, the next 3 tournaments need to be double digits.
Right, and Hakuho's back, but we don't know in what form. Yeah. But Terunofuji is going to be an obstacle, though Takayasu has beaten Terunofuji, so that's in his favor. It's still going to be hard, and he's going to need some extra motivation, and he's going to have to work harder than ever to hurry up and get Ozeki before his career's over.
Yeah, it's rough because if those he was 7-6-2, those 2 absences, if one of them was a win, then
he'd still be on. Would he still be on the run?
He wouldn't still be on the run. He lost his run when he got like 5 losses.
Okay. Because he's got to maintain the double digits to keep the run.
I think like if you have like 9 wins, that's like the bare minimum.
Got it.
So the thing is that if he had 9 or 10 wins, he would be treading water with his Ozeki run. But when you get to 8, it's like the only way to turn an 8 into being Ozeki is if the other 2 performances are so amazing that they just blow it out. Like you need like 13, 14, 15 wins in each.
Right.
And even then,
they're real resistant.
Takayasu does seem to be the durable type in his favor. So that he's slow walk aside. He's pressing forward. He's not collapsing.
Right. And he's not being mediocre either.
So there is this almost weird, he's putting in his all. His all may not be enough, but he's still doing it.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's going to know if it's enough until he hits the point that he has to retire. And it's just like, are you going to retire at Ozeki, or are you going to retire exactly where you are?
Yeah, it's very interesting because if you look at the past, the old sumo wrestlers, whatever was going on is forgotten. Whatever rank they ended on, oh, that guy was an Ozeki. And you might not know, if you weren't watching back then, that guy struggled and got Ozeki in the last tournament of his career. Mm-hmm. So in a way, for Takayasu, that's gotta mean something. Like, even if he can't sustain an Ozeki career like he had before, just reaching it again and being known as the Ozeki is the career fulfillment. So, I hope he can get there, but to your point, we gotta see if he's got enough.
Enough in it. And if he can't get Ozeki, get a cup.
Yes, come on, man!
Please! So...
if he can beat Terunofuji in a tournament and then just go on a run, he's good. Because the only people who are never going to win a cup are the people who can't beat Terunofuji. And that's just the reality. You got to have that in your favor. We could go through this list and see who's got a shot at the cup based on, did you give Terunofuji a hard enough time? So he's at least got that in his favor. But Terunofuji is probably going to try to win the cup as
many times as he can.
Yeah, so you gotta have some extra guts. So we salute you, Takayasu. Do your best. We'll see what happens in this tournament. Which brings us now to Ichinojo. Up from Maegashira 2 West to Komusubi 1 West. He's finally back in Sanyaku after 2 years with a 10-5. He is the one whose massive body broke Takayasu's disc. Everything was going very good for him. He looked good in training. He seems like a different fighter. And then he gets COVID.
Yeah.
Now, he should be back for the tournament. As far as rules, it'll be past the time when you need to quarantine. But it does mess up his training for the last 2 weeks. I don't know how much that matters to him or not. He's kind of a different type of guy than the usual sumo wrestler. So do you think it'll impact him?
I almost think it doesn't matter, because for him, like, this is his time to, I wrote down, it's time for his breakout. He's been building up steam up to this point, and whatever mental switch that got him here has been just turned on. Mm. And so, but now if he got it bad, then yeah, he's gonna be hosed. But it sounds like, if he got it bad, then they wouldn't be talking about him coming back and fighting.
Right.
Maybe. Well, then again, maybe not. I'm really just happy for Ichinojo, because I was scared that for the same reason that they wouldn't give Meisei the Sekiwake, they wouldn't give Ichinojo the Kamasubi. So if you give Asanoyama only one of the 2 Sekiwake slots, then
it affects everybody.
It trickles all the way down. So it's benefit for Meisei because he gets to be Sekiwake. It's benefit for Ichinojo because he gets to be in Sanyaku. And that is, like you had said, now he's back. And so there's that, it's going to be this opening of a valve. And that hopefully, like, all of the sumo spirit comes out. Or at least that's what he needs to do right now. Like, there's no more maybes.
Right.
For Ichinojo.
I'll say this. If Ichinojo stays the Ichinojo that he was last tournament and the tournaments leading up, he's a very good Ozeki candidate. He's the kind of guy who should be Ozeki if he fights the way he's supposed to fight. His weird Snorlax thing where he would just, like, turn off and go to sleep and lose a match is the only reason he's not Ozeki. He's the biggest guy in the tournament. He should be able to knock almost anybody out. Now, the really talented guys, of course, they're going to know how to get around him. But he should actually be good enough to be Ozeki if he actually stays consistent. Yeah. So, if this new Ichinojo continues, that might be the next person you look to. I could see him actually being Ozeki if he stayed the way he is now.
Can you imagine coming to us this time last year and saying that Meisei and Ichinojo are going to be our best hope for Ozeki?
Never in a million years. That sounds weird coming out of your mouth, to be honest. This whole thing, when you think about it, is bizarre. We don't live in the real world. everybody you had faith in, just the worst things happened to.
What, Snorlax and the guy's been injured?
Exactly.
Are you serious?
Snorlax is the next hope? What? Yeah, I don't know. This is so bizarre that when we go to record next year, it'll probably be even weirder. Like, Sumo's just weird at this point.
No, well, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna go down.
I'm not gonna tempt fate. I'm gonna get the sumo gods will smite me. But I personally was looking forward to this landmark for Ichinojo, and now that he's here, I'm like, okay, buddy, sumo,
be the big guy in sumo. So next we come to not the big guy in sumo, but the next big thing in sumo, and that would be Hoshoryu. He is up from Maegashira 5 West, Maegashira 1 East. He was 10-5. This is the moment that happens frequently. He's just the next guy to take this spot. He's in the meat grinder. Now he's going to have to... this is the reason why I want Hakuho to be in this tournament. Because I fear that every time Hakuho isn't in a tournament, he's not going to fight Hoshoryu. We need to have a Hakuho-Hoshoryu match. It'd be an all-time classic. Asashoryu will be in the crowd, drunker than drunk, screaming with Yakuza on each side of him, and it'll be the best moment. So, with that being said, we felt that Hoshoryu had something in him. He started out of nowhere, really starting to climb when he was faltering a bit. This is a big deal for him. Is he going to be the guy who just breaks out right now? Or is he going to be the guy that most Maegashira 1 Easts are and get pummeled and go down and have to start all over again?
I saw Hoshoryu at 1 East, and I was like, oh, yes. Oh, it is time. Because this is exactly where Hoshoryu wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And with the 10-5, it makes sense that it would put him there, but
them doing it, them taking Hoshoryu and saying, "You're top dog now," mm-hmm. and then just having every single person just staring at him. I'm like, ooh. He walks into the locker room, they all turn.
Exactly.
Oh, Maegashira 1 East, huh?
Exactly, that energy.
I got my eye on you.
Yeah. So now I see that, and when I first saw that, I looked back up, and I'm like, who's he gonna be? And I'm like, then I'm looking I'm like Ichinojo. It's like those are good fights, by the way. I love those two fighting.
Yeah.
And then I look at Takayasu. I'm like, maybe. I look at Meisei. I'm like, interesting. I look at Mitakeumi, and you just keep going up. You're like, ooh, I can see him beating any of these people on the right day. I can also see him losing horribly to all these people on the wrong day.
The question is, how will he look against Terunofuji? This would be their first matchup, right? Yeah. It would.
Well, what? Keep going.
Okay. Terunofuji's gonna hit tough competition at some point. He was just like a man possessed. He's going. But now that he's the top dog, there's nowhere else to go. You can only go down from there. You either maintain the spot or you go down. So someone like Hoshoryu is a great test to see how him and Terunofuji will match up.
So he's fought Terunofuji 3 times, and he's lost all 3.
Were they in Juryo? No,
this was recently. Well, when Terunofuji was on his rise up.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's not looking good for you, Hoshoryu. Sorry. But, who knows? Maybe you're a new man in your Maegashira 1 East.
I don't know how they did when both of them were lower down.
Right.
But in the last year or so, this was during Terunofuji's rise up, and then Hoshoryu's climbing
was trying
as well.
To figure, right.
This was also during his floundering years, so you get the 8 and 7s and the 7s and 8s. And
I wouldn't be surprised if at least it's a good match. I do think Terunofuji would probably beat him if there's a history, but I think Hoshoryu will rise to the occasion.
Yeah,
and want to show what he's got.
He's got the nerves out of the way because some of the earlier matches, when he was awkward and rigid when he fought Takakeisho, and Takakeisho was like, "Okay, kid."
Yeah.
So him to the that's side. Gone. He's gotten that out of his system. So from now on, is going to be a well-oiled machine, maybe, or like you said, he will just suffer the fate of all 1 East. And there's no way of knowing until the ring is entered.
Yeah, I mean, some tournaments when we're talking about it, we have sort of a vision. I have no vision for this. I mean, if Terunofuji wins and everything, okay, that makes sense to me. But other than that, there's no other storylines. There's just a lot of people that have made it. Like, this is the tournament where a new storyline is created. And Hoshoryu will hopefully be on the side of going up versus on the side of try again next time, kid. Which, that kind of fits with Takanosho, Maegashira 1 West. He did rise up from Maegashira 2 East. He only had an 8 and 7, and he was the guy who was coasting in Sanyaku for a while. And we were wondering, is that because he's poised to go up, or is it because he's just on the surface and that's all he can do? It's not looking great for him to have like some sort of big rise. With that being said, he's consistent enough that he should be hanging around this sort of area. But I don't know, is he poised for something more, or is that going to take some time? This
is another, I'm always looking for these pairings of East and West. And this is, so both Hoshoryu and Takanosho you feel belong higher. And as often is the case with these, there's only so much room at the top.
Right.
So is it going to be the new guy with ambition unchecked, or is Takanosho going to sort of finish dusting himself off and get back to where he was? Now, Takanosho's 8 and 7, the 8 and 7 doesn't tell the whole story. He was in a spiral and then he pulled himself back out.
True.
We were comparing Takanosho to Daieisho before, and how they were both sort of troubled pusher thrusters, but Takanosho sort of dug deep and found that energy. Will he dig deep again? Maybe will he need to fight for Takakeisho and sort of bring the pride of the Heia onto his back? Is he just gonna have a really nice smile anyway?
Right, at least he always has the smile. But no, to that point, actually, he's got Takakeisho and the fact that Takagenji got kicked out of sumo.
Yes.
His stable is getting decimated right now. He's like the guy who needs to represent right now, unless Takakeisho like magically comes back from the oblivion here. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a Shodai in him, in that he's always like kind of smiling and, he's just kind of there, but you can't get a read on what's going on between the ears. But he's not a Eeyore like Shodai. So hopefully his positivity and his work ethic leads to something. He was at the practice sessions like you had mentioned. But I'm not seeing anything like super jump out yet. And I think this is a tournament where he needs to make a statement. Like, I think it's now that you make a statement, despite the fact that he's young. We really need to start filling these top roles with the people who actually belong there.
Yeah, this is the recurring theme for this tournament. Like, now is the new beginning, the time to make a statement, to plant your feet, to say, this is my time. To quote like every single sports show ever. This is our time to do it. That's go do that thing, guys.
Yeah, go do that, guys.
Go do that thing. No, Takanosho again, understated. Always hard to read him, easy to underestimate him.
Yeah.
He's got that on his side.
So that brings us to Hokutofuji, who is up from Maegashira 3 East to Maegashira 2 East. 8 and 7. I'm going to let you do most of the talking on him, but I will say that he's one of those guys who should be better than, like, rank-wise should be better than he is, and it's just never worked out for him. You could list 800 reasons why, but sometimes it's just not in the cards. Is that the case?
I'm not going to give you a good answer on this. Every time Hokutofuji, I'm like, this is time. We're going to do it. We're going to see it, guys. And then, like, the first 2 days of last term, I'm like, oh, he's done it. He's put it together. And then he loses, like, 6 in a row. 8 and 7, though, not bad. Like, for him, in my opinion, like, it is that battle of inches. It's just like, he is just like a hair away from figuring it all out, it feels like. And then, like, he'll do one thing, and then something else will fall apart. It's just this little thing. I'd love him to win it.
Yeah, I mean, he's worked so hard. I feel like he deserves way more than he has. To spill your blood like that every other tournament, to how many concussions do you think that guy has?
Oh, God.
You know, when he leaves sumo, he's going to be like a bag of broken bones. Okay? He deserves to get some extra special something. Whether it's a cup, whether it's, runner-up at least. Sanyaku for longer than Mitakeumi, something.
Everything that we said for the other people do apply to Hokutofuji, but I'm just not going to internalize it. I'm just going to say every time is his chance. Every tournament we go into, it's just like, this is his moment. He's got this. It's all coming together to this moment, and then he gets thrown like a child by Terunofuji or something.
This is a good strategy, though, for when you have a favorite, because at least you're always going into a tournament lighthearted. I go into tournaments having anxiety attacks.
Yeah. Well,
so maybe I should adopt your way of looking at your favorite situation.
If Hokutofuji got injured half as much as Takakeisho did, I would be just a nervous wreck.
Fair point. At least Hokutofuji can take literally an anvil.
Apparently.
And still get up and fight the next day.
Maybe he trains with an anvil.
He probably does train with an anvil. Oh my goodness. So next we come to the next great hope, which is Kiribayama. He's jumped up from Maegashira 6 West to Maegashira 2 West, 9 and 6. Kiribayama is he's an enigma to me. And it's probably because I just don't know. He hasn't been around super long, but I can't get a grasp on him. Like, I see sort of the Kakuryu in him, the style, but I also see a little bit of injury proneness, and I don't know if that's why he hasn't reached where he's at. He has sort of a more laid-back attitude. I feel like he's got the ability to be up there with Hoshoryu, but there are things that keep him just a little bit off the pace. And I don't know if injury is it, but it's sort of what's popping into my mind.
A little off the pace does describe Kiribayama. So I am again like this top 5. Like I'm looking at this, and this meat grinder goes both ways. This tournament, like I said for Hoshoryu, I look down and then I look back up. I'm like, someone here isn't going to be there. For Kiribayama, him and Onosho were sort of in that pair of they're a step behind, and that step behind is all they need to start falling down. Now Kiribayama is sort of making his way back up. So they're going to put him along with all of these other hot shots. So we're going to have him fighting Hoshoryu, Wakatakakage, Kotonowaka, Ura. So he's sort of throwing his hat back into the ring in a way after it got thrown out. And so now's Kiribayama's chance to say it's his time, blah, 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 and prove that these people are taking up his spot.
Right, like, get out of the way.
Get out of the way. So it's sort of, a lot of these people are rising up, and then it's like Kiribayama's like the guy who's like muscling through the crowd to get to the front.
Absolutely.
But towards your point, he's got these shades of brilliance, but then sort of like these Achilles heels that come in and deal with him a little bit.
I think I want to pay a little extra attention to his matches just to see if there's something discernible. And maybe Chris will do some more of his analyzing and maybe something will come out. But there's something there that, it's yet to completely show itself. So next is Wakatakakage, who should be in the conversation of going up, but he was the one in the meat grinder. Sanyaku debut, Komusubi 1 East, 5 and 10. He drops to Maegashira 3 East. That still puts him facing top guys, but it puts him outside of, being the guy. And I think that's a fair thing to do, because Wakatakakage did not look that good this past tournament. I'm not really sure. Did he just get overwhelmed by the pressure of it all? Were they just too strong for him? I almost think that they were stronger than him, because he is a smaller guy and he's really agile and he's really cool. He does some super cool moves. But when you're fighting the toughest guys, they are stronger than everybody else. It isn't just moves. It's not like Enho, where it's like he can win every match, but he's not that strong. Day after day after day of getting beat down by the strong guys, is that why he couldn't do it?
Yeah. So what happened with Wakatakakage, I would say, is that he hit that spot. And like what happened with him is sort of what like we were mentioning with Meisei, what we expect to happen when you hit that first, you get knocked down. So like you breach the top 5 and make sure you get knocked back down. You make your way back up. You breach Sanyaku, you get knocked back down. Like, this is the pattern that happens. So, like, I see Wakatakakage going through this, and I'm like, all's good. Mm. He'll be, like, he's still in the fray.
He's still in the conversation.
He's still there. There's people burning trails on the way up, certainly. But he is just as able to beat an Eeyore Shodai.
Yeah, most certainly.
Anybody else on this list, he's just as game. So, for Wakatakakage, it's sort of a step back, but it's that I'm learning step back. Or that's what it needs to be. You need to, sort of download the data, internalize, brush yourself off, move forward. So he's part of this process. And so, like, in a way, he's a step ahead of everybody, even though he's a step behind. Mm-hmm. To move.
Right. He doesn't feel like Kiribayama, even though he's lower than him and just had this setback. He seems like he should be able to just pick up where he left off.
Pushed forward. Like, if we were to see... So let's say that, using Kiribayama as an example. Let's say Kiribayama and Wakatakakage are both in Sanyaku in November, which assumes a whole bunch of things that probably aren't going to happen, but for the sake of argument, you're going to look at those two and you're going to say, only one of them is going to be here. Wakatakakage will stay there. And Kiribayama won't, because Wakatakakage has the experience. He's been there before.
Right.
So that's not going to be a problem. This is sort of like what I was saying with Hoshoryu. That Hoshoryu sort of got the fighting the top people jitters out, Hakuho notwithstanding. Come on, let's have it happen. Come on. Come back for that one match, Hakuho. One match.
Day one.
Hakuho,
Hoshoryu. Okay, tournament done.
Throw him at Hoshoryu and then walk away. Find the angry drunk guy with the Yakuza, like you said, and just throw. Anyway, Wakatakakage. So I see him. This is part of the evolution process. Now, what will be interesting is there are some people that will touch Sanyaku and then never come back.
Right. Like
Hokutofuji. Like, up until recently, Ichinojo. So there is the, There's a little bit of a, It's a risk. It's dangerous, but that's the people who go up and stay up will usually have this tap.
Right. Exactly. And we assume that he is one of the ones who will be fine based on his body of work.
Yes. So this is more of a hope that he'll be fine and confidence that this is a step back to move forward.
Right. Exactly. So next we have Kotonowaka. He took a giant jump from Maegashira 11 West to Maegashira 3 West with that 12-3. This will be very, very interesting for him because he definitely didn't belong in Maegashira 11 West. That was just what had gone on. But for them to jump him up that much, it does mean that they expect that he can compete at this level.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, I'm assuming he wants to prove that he belongs at this level.
This turnaround for Kotonowaka, where he was just barely hanging on at the bottom and then just 12-3 out of nowhere. Oh, boy.
The prospects.
Oh, man. And that's where this top 5 is so good. Like, it's just so full of these young, hungry guys. Just, we blinked and just all the veterans fell out. Mm-hmm. All the hangers-on are trickling away. They're just shoop. It's like a vacuum seal. Just
right.
Just full of 300-pound young strapping men.
They just opened the bottom and the veterans fell out and these guys just started shoop.
And
yeah.
Couldn't find good enough things to say about Kotonowaka last time. That 12-3, that gets you a Yusho.
I know. If it was any other tournament where Hakuho and Terunofuji weren't fighting it out, that is a possible Yusho.
Yeah. I mean, I know Mitakeumi, Takakeisho, Asanoyama, I think they all won with the 12-3.
I think Terunofuji did too.
Might have. So that's Yusho contention. Now 13-2 is a little better, but 12-3.
Yeah.
The difference between 11 wins and 12 wins is enormous.
Huge, yeah.
So I would agree that Kotonowaka all of a sudden found himself with his work cut out for him. At the same time...
We're just waiting, though. We're waiting for that guy who says, enough is enough, I'm not new anymore. I'm going to show you who I am, and you all are going to be afraid of me. And I'm hoping that Kotonowaka is the guy who just says, forget this. I'm going up.
Yeah. Can you... I'm getting ahead of myself. I am so excited for these young people who will either just upset people left and right or are just going to be pavement by the end of this. One of these guys are going to draw that short straw and they're going to have 12 losses.
You're right.
It is going to be horrible to watch and I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, even bad things can be entertaining. I mean...
We'll talk about poor Kotoeko in a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that one hurts.
That's
what you're referring to.
That was more like masochistic pain.
That's masochistic pain. That poor guy. So now speking of veterans, there's very few left, but Tamawashi, Mr. Iron Man, 11-4 out of nowhere. He rises up from Maegashira 10 East to Maegashira 4 East. They jumped him up quite a bit. Same amount of distance as Kotonowaka. The thing about Tamawashi is it's kind of a miracle that he can still fight this way at his age. And it doesn't seem, like, even when he wasn't doing that good, he didn't look out of shape or out of breath or overworked. It just looks like it didn't work out. It's like the guy drank from the fountain of youth.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at the conversations, the most recent Chris Sumo video was showing, like, the different records. Tamawashi is up there with Hakuho on some of the lesser-known records, but he's fought that long and he's won that much. And yet he's just sort of this unassuming guy until you remember when he took that surprise Yusho, what was it, 2 years ago now?
2019, because 2020 was Tokushoryu.
Okay, so... yeah, it's kind of amazing that he could have a bounce back like that, and like you're kind of saying here in the notes, what is it? What did we just see with this 11-4?
Yeah, so it's basically, is this a resurgence or is this whack-a-mole? I'm leaning towards the latter. I think that like we're talking about, this whole top area is just full of people just going for it. And not to say that Tamawashi isn't, but when you get this hungry or this good, there's only so much room. Yeah. So I'm seeing like a 6 and 9 for Tamawashi. Okay. Like it'll be a graceful fallback. It's not going to be a plaster.
It's not going to be a crash.
It's not going to be a crash. Yeah. So it'll be fun to see him up here. I think a lot of these veterans seems to be a lot more comfortable around like the 6 to 9, 7 to 10. That's where the veterans can really seem to settle in.
Right, they're sort of like the working man sumo, where it's like they just keep it steady, hold down the fort, train the youngins, give a little bit of trouble to the veterans, or like the higher up veterans, but they're really just there to keep the fort going, and that's what it does seem like Tamawashi is. And I actually could see the 6 and 9 that you're talking about. So once again, this will be a big question mark in September. Like, do we just see Tamawashi become a man possessed and just just rip this whole Banzuke to shreds?
That would be incredible. That would, like, we're talking about all these people that need to be the hope of the future, and
Tamawashi's like, we're not done with the past yet.
Father Time coming for you.
He wins the Yusho, and then he gives everybody in the audience a batch of his famous cookies. I would love to try his cookies. So, yeah, we will see what happens with Tamawashi. Next, we have Daieisho. It was not that far of a fall, actually, for a 5 and 10. He's down. He's on Maegashira 4 West, down from Maegashira 1 West. He had a 5 and 10. Definitely injured, but is there more to it than that? And I'm kind of leaning towards it's more than just injuries. Push sumo is a tough thing to that be your only thing. I should look into this in particular, but I imagine that push sumo guys in this more modern era probably don't have very long careers. Or they're lower ranked. Like, to be a push sumo guy and be a top elite guy, you've got to be stronger than everybody else because all you have is blasting someone out of the ring. And in the meantime, as you'll see with him, you break all your fingers. That can't be pleasant. How do these guys eat when they break all their fingers? You know, I remember Kotoyuki with the, fingers that never were straight again. They were just a claw. Daieisho was kind of getting up there in age for a push sumo guy.
Yeah, this tumble feels a little different. I want my dark horse to do well. He's not really a dark horse anymore.
Because he did win a Yusho. That kind of throws that off.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he shouldn't have won the Yusho. He would have been fine.
Exactly.
Daieisho, you messed up. But if it's not the bounce back from the injuries, it's some mental thing. If it's not the mental thing, it's a physical. This is, towards your point, it's very physically demanding to be just a push sumo guy. And so if anything's out of balance, it's just going to tumble around. Now, for Daieisho, like his power, his skill, his grit means that he's not going to have a complete collapse.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about him like falling apart completely. It's just that it seems that he needs to rebuild himself if he wants to make another run up. Mm-hmm. He's still, he's 4 West, so he's still in the conversation. He's still going to be fighting some top people. Maybe he's going to put some dirt on somebody who would rather not lose. He could play a little foil.
Maybe that extra week with the Olympic break was good. Every little bit counts. Yeah,
I'm gonna keep I'm gonna sort of do that thing that you say you're not gonna keep an eye on somebody, but you really are, like with that side of your eye. Yeah, I'll be like, oh yeah, Hoshoryu. Just like nobody talk about Daieisho so he can do well.
Yeah, like we won't when we're watching the matches, we won't even say anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, oh, who's that guy in the red Mawashi? He looks good.
Red Mawashi's looking good today.
Red Mawashi's good today.
Watch him come in with a green one.
Oh, God.
The red one is just too iconic. He needs to keep it.
Imagine him and Chiyomaru trade Mawashis.
That would be very strange and cool.
I would be like, what's going on?
Could you imagine if they had like just a swap day and all the sumos like put on a different one than they do? You'd be watching like, I don't know who anybody is anymore.
I memorize people by their belt colors. What's going on?
I can't look at the face and the belt and it's like does not compute.
Terutsuyoshi with Ura's pink
belt. Man, would that be the best swap ever? I would not recognize him.
Ura with the bad boy black belt.
Then he had to put on the leather jacket. Ura with the leather jacket would be amazing. So, next we have Chiyoshoma, the surprise of the last few years, I would say. He goes from hanging out in Juryo for a while after being in the upper division for as long as I can remember, to just slowly coming back and just like Tamawashi, like proving to be ageless. He's the same age, the same ability, and now he's decided, I feel like beating everybody up, and now I'm going to go from Maegashira 7 West to Maegashira 5 East. Where do you think this train is headed?
I don't care, but I don't want it to stop. I want Chiyoshoma to beat Shodai.
Oh my god. You are looking for... This is like a troll tournament, man. You are looking for some crazy stuff.
Maybe. Well, I want some nutso. Like Chiyoshoma, like
he could beat him. Could beat him.
Yeah. I want to see him try to henka Hakuho.
No! I love that.
He's 5 East. He could actually fight Hakuho.
And they have years of fighting each other. I actually would really like to see that match.
Could you?
Well, what if Hakuho decides he's going to do his crazy stuff in the back?
What if they both henka and they just swap places?
What if they just start doing like a ring around the rosy? That would be amazing.
Chiyoshoma, beautiful man. Giving me such great dreams. And also, still, nobody can stop him.
No. He's just going to do his thing. It's almost like sumo is completely on his terms. Like, who cares about age? Who cares about rank? Like, I've come here and I've decided I'm going to win this time. I mean, what would you do with the Chiyoshoma Yusho?
Oh my god.
If Tamawashi can get one, Chiyoshoma could get one. But that was a different time.
It was a different time. There was a lot of
Terunofuji kind of upsets the apple cart for most people.
Yeah. Terunofuji comes in. Also, there's a lot of like injured Yokozuna back then. Also, you had the new baby energy.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a lot of good... Tamawashi had a lot of good stuff coming for him. Chiyoshoma, just... Anybody tells you to change anything,
don't listen to
just
them.
henka them and throw them out.
Exactly. He gets a pass on the henka. It's his thing and they all know it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be... Like I said, I'm going to rag on you forever. If you're Mitakeumi, you can't henka. It's just not right. If you're Chiyoshoma, I mean, what do people expect? You should be able to read it. What do you want me to say? So speaking of which, here comes one of my other favorites. And I don't have to worry about him because he's had a nice long career where he didn't live through all these injuries like Takakeisho. And that would be Takarafuji. He had this great thing going, made it up. Did he make it up all the way to Sanyaku?
I think he did. I think he touched it.
He touched Sanyaku, and then the fall was like, boom! It seems like he's sort of settled out here. He was at Maegashira 8 East. He moved up to Maegashira 5 West. 8 and 7. Looked very steady, like he usually does. So I think he's going to be all right. And he now will have a new role with Terunofuji. What is that? Is that called the sweeper?
It's the dew sweeper is the guy in the front, and then the sword bearer is the guy in the back.
All right, so he's going to be the dew sweeper?
Dew sweeper.
Okay, so he's the dew sweeper.
West Kamasubi in 2016.
That must have made Takarafuji feel extremely good to get to share in Terunofuji's promotion. And Takarafuji actually has done Yokozuna duties like that for both Hakuho and Kakeryu, I believe, earlier on, before Enho was up and everything. Hakuho would pick different guys, and Takarafuji was in the mix for that. So it's great to just see, maybe it gives him a little bit more energy, but to walk out there with his stablemate, get to be a part of the whole journey, that's a special thing. And I'm so happy because Takarafuji seems like an awesome guy, awesome sumo wrestler, but awesome guy. So I am looking forward to that first Yokozuna ceremony so much.
Yeah. And in this way, like with Terunofuji, like everybody around him shares in the victory. Mm-hmm. Takarafuji's no exception. Also, in terms of the way his sumo's been going, he seems to have found, like, as I was mentioning before, that the veterans, they seem to do good in the middle. Yeah. So Takarafuji was going down a little bit. Now he's got his 8 and 7. He's on the back up. And now he's got the new Yokozuna energy. Now he's sort of in a... 5 West is a little high, maybe. But, like, he's in a position where he can still keep going and keep pushing upwards. And who knows what this new Yokozuna era will do. Right. And that kind of energy can trickle down. I mean, a lot of the old guard were saying when they saw Terunofuji rise back up, they sort of gave him that second wind. Koto Shogiku had mentioned that before he injured himself out. That was a shame. Because that was rough. I think he would have fought on a little bit more. He had a record he was chasing. That injury just was devastating. And that's why we always cross our fingers and stuff. Takarafuji seems to be somebody who's been able to avoid injuries for the most part. But that is the thing where it's like, things are going good, you've got your momentum, and it's like, you're injured and you're just too old to recover from it, so now it's done. So I'm excited for Takarafuji. I'm excited to see what he does this tournament. I do think that we'll see a little bit of extra spark because of the new role. But, we'll see. The whole thing, just a giant question mark over this tournament. Which brings us to Ura, Maegashira 6 East, up from Maegashira 13 West. It was a little bit of a rough start, and I actually thought, based on how it started and not knowing him at all, that he was going to end up 6 and 9. And then when just out of nowhere he just kept finding a way to win, he winds up with a 10 and 5. That was mysterious to me. I'm like, how did he go from kind of like flying out of the ring every match to getting a 10 and 5? With that being said, his skill is undeniable. He is very exciting to watch. But he terrifies me because about the injuries. I keep fearing an injury. And he's such a rough and tumble, he's super durable, I have to say. He's got this rough and tumble style, even though he's injured, and yet he kept getting back up and he just kept fighting, he kept winning. So, I am excited to see him and terrified at the same time. Up at 6 East is very fun. They gave him a like a 7-rung shoot up the ladder.
They want to see what he can do with other people.
Now, he's not going to be going after the Sanyaku, the upper ranks. He's going to be going after those other people we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to have like this youngsters Royal Rumble on the top half of the Banzuke. So like when I saw Ura up there, and then I like Kotonowaka and Kiribayama, I'm like, oh, you guys are going to scrap.
There's going to be a lot of scrapping.
And so what was also nice is that when Ura was all the way down in 13 West, all these people are already up there.
Right.
So Ura never had a chance to get at him.
Uh-huh.
Now
we're going to see what he's made of.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, he's got to be super inspired by Terunofuji. I mean, they have almost the same story.
They almost have the same knees.
Exactly. They look the same as far as, like, the injuries.
You just take Terunofuji and you use the Photoshop squish tool.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what we really need is a good showing from him. Because we do need to see a Terunofuji Ura match. That has to happen. They are the same guy. There's so many different storylines you could go with that. Plus you've got technique guy and just super power guy. But Ura's also, he's a powerful guy. He's not some little scrawny guy who's like gonna trick you. He could go head to head. So, I'm hoping, I shouldn't get too far ahead, that this tournament goes in the right direction so that we have an amazing November where we have all those storylines and we're like, this could happen and this could happen and everything's great.
Yeah, Ura's knocking on that door.
He's knocking on the door. Which then brings us to Onosho. He only had a small drop from Maegashira 6 East to Maegashira 6 West, 7 and 8. He might be the new Snorlax. He might be replacing... And you wouldn't necessarily think that because he puts a lot of oomph in his initial charge, but then the energy just gets zapped. It's like if he doesn't get you on the Tachi, it's over. And I don't remember that being the case with him before. He's like letting go. He's like easing up or something. I don't know.
He's he's taking his foot off the gas a bit, it feels like. Because him and Kiribayama, I had mentioned this before, they both had sort of the similar storyline that they were trying to break that ceiling, but they couldn't get through. Kiribayama has, at least for the time being, broken through, but Onosho is dwindling a little bit. His energy is waning, and at this point, like, it's up to him to start the fire again. Right,
and it's like, will he, what's going to be the thing that makes him say, okay, I'm not liking this, it's time to put in a little bit more.
Yeah. Right now he's Snorlaxing it a bit. He's taking in some like a productivity, a moving forward nap in a way.
Yeah.
And
sleepwalking.
There it is. He's a sleepwalker. I don't know what Pokemon that is.
Yeah. I don't know. And he really needs to... I know this isn't their focus. This is my focus. But I'm sure there's a little incy bit in their mind. If Onosho wants a final showdown with Hakuho, he's got to get up higher. I would think each of the guys, if they were looking for some motivation, let it be Hakuho. Let it be a chance to fight him before he's gone. Because once he's gone, that's it. There is no other time. So even if you lacked motivation for other reasons, have it for that reason alone. And Onosho, he has such history with Hakuho that it'd be cool to see them fight again. But, I don't have super high hopes for him right now, but every time that happens, that's when he does wake up.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to help you by saying, you're going to really stink this tournament. It's going to be the worst tournament ever.
A little bit of reverse psychology for Onosho. We're just like,
I think he needs it. So next we move to Shimanoumi. 8 and 7, he moves up to Maegashira 7 East from Maegashira 9 West. He's one of those guys where he can really surprise you with a out of nowhere win, but he's having trouble maintaining that energy for the whole tournament. So I'm pretty sure he beat Terunofuji a couple tournaments ago.
Yeah.
And then he had that one tournament when he was newer to the upper divisions where he was in he was in the Yusho conversation. So he's got sort of this surprise energy and these techniques that come out of nowhere, and maybe like in the middle of a match, he's like, I'm going to turn this up and like do something amazing. But it's not sustained. It's here 1 minute and gone the next.
It feels like he's only got so many of those cards in the deck. He does. I love his grit, his never say die at the edge. And we're reaching the point that people are finding ways around it, finding ways to get through it.
That's a big problem.
And so every time he gets an 8 and 7, like it's a little bit of progress. He's moving forward a little bit. He's showing, he's figuring some things out. He doesn't have explosive growth though. It's a slow burn for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he shows like he can. If he puts his foot down, he says no. He beats Terunofuji. So and he was going to win that show, and then everybody's like, "Oh crap, give him somebody hard," and he just like chucked the top division at him, and then he got the like 3 losses in a row. I'm just like, guys, let him.
Yeah,
But he's fun.
And anybody who can beat Terunofuji, you have to at least take a second look at. I mean, what was within him to win that match, So we'll wish him luck, and Myogiryu 7 East is a decent place to be if you're trying to work yourself through something. So we'll see how that goes. His partner is Terutsuyoshi, Myogiryu 7 West, up from Myogiryu 10 West, 8 and 7. I will be stunned if we don't see a very energetic Terutsuyoshi. I mean, I expect to see the leather jacket, the riding his motorcycle down the aisle, and look at me, I'm here to kick some ass.
He's probably going to be bouncing all over the place. The first week curse still applies to him, so if he loses a lot in the beginning, no big deal. Similar to Takarafuji, though, maybe the new role with he's Yokozuna buddy can give him some of that extra energy, that confidence, that motivation to push forward. I will always remember that leg pick on Asanoyama, and Terutsuyoshi had that look on his face. It's like, this one's for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And so he needs that right now.
That is what he needs, and I do feel like he presents himself as like the guy who really cares about making an impression and really cares about fulfilling duty. When he did that to Asanoyama, he was helping Terunofuji make it to Yokozuna. First it was Ozeki, now it's Yokozuna. And now he's a part of, the end result of that. And now it's time for him to go on his own journey. He has many things in the way, particularly he's a small guy. And he's a little bit unsteady. Like, he can't figure out what move he's gonna... You can't do the leg pick 3 times in a row, for instance. He's got a little bit of an Ishiura thing going on. Does he think too much before he starts? Does he not think enough? Is it just these guys have figured him out? I don't know, but I do think that he'll be channeling some new energy, at least for September. And I really hope so, because he did have a tournament that was like, he got 10 or 11 wins. That was probably a year ago at this point. But at that time, I thought we were going to see him rise up. Like, that pre-existed the Wakatakakages, the Hoshoryus. I thought he was going to be the next great.
For a while, he was right there. Like, him and Enho, they both were just nearly, and then something happens. And so, if he's on the way back up, now's a good time. So next we have... Now, we said we were going to talk about Okinoumi after the July tournament because he was in a downward slide, and we weren't sure if it was a one-off or if it was a trend. He had a 5 and 10. Is this a downward trend? It is and it isn't. So that 5 and 10 was a 5 and 3 at the end of the first race. And then he loses 7 matches in a row. So he just had a collapse. So, is Okinoumi that 5 and 3, or is he the 0 and 7?
Right.
And if he was injured, then he just fell apart.
It would explain everything if it was that.
If it was some mental game that fell apart, if something happened. Optimistically, I'm looking more at the 5 and 3 than the 0 and 7. Mm-hmm. But we did mention, like, whenever these guys, they start to fall down,
you have to start asking questions.
I have to start asking questions. And so, Myogiryu 8 East is sort of the veteran sweet spot. So if he goes any further than that, then he's in risk. But if he, even if he gets a 7 and 8 here,
right, he'll be okay.
It's treading water,
right?
So I think if he any more than 8 losses, and now we've got a bad set of data,
right? Now it's okay, we are seeing a trend here. So I guess we're gonna continue just one more time. One more time. I know, it's just one more cookie, Mom. We're not ready. We're not ready for that. So next we have Tobizaru. Continues to fall down from Myogiryu 3 West to Myogiryu 8 West. That still isn't as far of a fall as I expected. They like him.
They are being so generous to Tobizaru. Right. He's lost 20 matches in 2 tournaments, and he's
still only Myogiryu 8 West. Somebody likes him, or he's somebody's relative. But with that being said, Tobizaru is a very likable guy, so it could be that. Yeah. It's going to be important to see him in this role, because I do wonder, I can't help it, maybe I have bias, if Tobizaru really is just a Juryo fighter who pulled it off for a couple of tournaments. He's starting to look that way. He's starting to look very outclassed. And it's in the way that he presents himself. I am fine with his monkey tricks. I think it's great. But will that actually work? Will we actually win matches that way? It feels a little like Enho. And you see where Enho is right now. Is Tobizaru really just an above-average Juryo fighter?
It's... well, like you said, this is when we're going to start figuring that out. It is interesting that Tobizaru sort of, was pushed out of the way by some of these hot, young pieces of sumo spirit. So, in a way, it almost feels like, okay, Tobizaru belongs down here, and then somebody like Kotonowaka belongs up there. Mm-hmm. And now it's up to Tobizaru to be like, hey, remember me? The guy who got double-digit wins without even trying?
Right, so who was in the conversation for the U show as well.
Also was, and then he just sort of explodes on the scene, causes Takayasu to have a brain aneurysm in front of everybody.
So
it's maybe he is just a Juryo guy who faked it till he made it. But really, wouldn't it be up to everyone else to put him in his place?
You would think so. It's not solely his job. It's if you guys aren't going to rise to the challenge, then he's going to stay right where he is.
Yeah. So
I guess it is a reflection on everybody.
If a guy's gonna walk the talk to walk, whatever. Tobizaru, keep fooling them. It's great.
Keep flying 20 rows back. I mean, I love seeing him. I'm not... Yeah. I am wishing him to stay exactly where he is. I just don't know.
Yeah, we're looking at it, we're like, oh, what happens when you're out of your tricks, boy? You need new tricks. And so is the answer, make me lose them.
Make me lose them, exactly. Next, we have another guy that we're always cautiously examining, and that would be Aoiyama. Myogiryu 9 East, down from Myogiryu 8 West, 7 and 8. I mean, the guy has injury problems, and I think that is what prevents him. He's another big man in sumo. But with that being said, he's also a bit, he's got a little bit of a Daieisho problem, but he's so strong and so big, he should be able to stay around for a while. But those back injuries and everything else, they're killing him. But he's showing how tough he is by keeping it going. Yeah, I'll
grant you the resolve. Anybody past 30 on sumo in a way during borrowed time, unless you're Tamawashi, in which case you have drank from the fountain of eternal youth, right? And he'll be fighting well into his 60s. But I guess what's sort of a little upsetting about the last tournament for Aoiyama is that he was fighting the way he used to be. Mm. There was that spark in March that made me go crazy, and then in May he gets injured, and then in July he comes back and sort of seems to have it together. Or May was injured, in July it looks like he's getting... Oh my god, I'm getting my months mixed up. I'm so excited. Anyway, Aoiyama, whatever happened in March doesn't seem to be sticking around.
Right. It's hard to keep a momentum after an injury.
Yes.
Injuries just kind of wipe the slate clean. And I think that's a little bit what's going on with him is it's got to feel so good to be fighting so good, and then all of a sudden you get injured and you have to start all over again, and you're a little older and you're a little more tired, and it's do I really want to do this?
So it's a longer road to get to the same place.
Yeah, so, I mean, without knowing the background of why he's still fighting, it's hard to say, like, is he still fighting because he loves this, or is he still fighting because he needs,
Likes to get paid.
Exactly. So, we'll see. He's going to be one of those question marks in September. He could be the guy again in March if he's not... He has the capability if he's not injured. I really think so. I don't think he's done yet.
Just suck if you have to wait for March again.
I know. And that's what happens with some of these guys. You got to wait a whole year before you see greatness again. Sumo is rough. That's all I can say. Sumo is like so demanding of your essence. It's like, I will suck out your soul and stomp on it. And then I'll put it back in you and make you happy again. I can suck it back out again. Ugh. I've had the highest highs in this sport and the lowest lows. Swear. Anyway, next we have Hidenoumi, Tobizaru's brother. Maegashira 9 West, down from Maegashira 9 East, 7 and 8. He's floundering a little bit. He's a little lost. I know he had an injury, but I don't see, to be cliche, I don't see what his style of sumo is.
Him and Tsurugisho sort of have the same story. It's just that Hidenomi's record was just better enough to get a little higher up. And that they're both really good veteran belt sumo guys who just broke it late. But now that they're up here, they're floundering a little bit. So he does need a second push. I mean, maybe hanging out with Tobizaru in the Banzuke is going to help him a little bit. They can sort of share energy. But it's also just equally as likely that they'll just fall down to Juryo together. Right.
I could see... I could see that.
There's something about Hidenoumi that I really like. It's almost like the casual nature of his strength that's fun to watch. So I am rooting for Hidenoumi a little bit and sort of hoping he gets that second push he needs, that he figures it all out and starts climbing again.
Right.
And then maybe Hidenoumi passes Tobizaru and he sort of sends him a tweet with like the sticking your tongue out while poking your eye thing, and then Tobizaru gets mad, and then he does really well again, and they sort of feed off.
Yeah, I mean, we need that brother energy.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So we'll keep an eye on him, and once again, September is a time to start over because nobody knows what's going to happen.
Fresh page.
Next, we come to Chiyotairyu, 10 East, down for Maegashira 4 West, 4 and 11. I think we've hit the time with Chiyotairyu, as much as I don't want to say it, where he's just the lower end guy. I don't think he can even muster the middle like a Takarafuji. I think he's just kind of hit the ceiling, and now I think he's good enough to stay in the upper division, but I think he's going to be a lower guy who might go down and come back up, that kind of thing. I'm sensing like Shohozan vibes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
So, he's rightfully in the position he needs to be in right now.
Yeah, we knew very early on, like when we saw the Banzuke in July, we're like, ooh. Ooh. He needs a lower competition. Now he has it. Maybe he fell a little bit lower than he wanted to. At the same time, he's got a buffer, so he's not really at risk. And if these are the kinds of fights that he can make, then he should be able to turn it around.
Right. I mean, if he maintains, like gets a 9 and 6, then he's going to go up again. So he seems to be in the right place to do what he's going to do. And next, sort of in a similar vibe, but different, is Myogiryu. 10 West, down from Maegashira 7 East, 5 and 10. Myogiryu I really do think that this is a classic case of a veteran who's tired. I really do think that. I don't think it's skill set. I just think he's probably gets more tired than he used to. He did go to the practice sessions, and that was his first time going to practice sessions, apparently.
Oh.
I don't know why it wasn't something he did before, but he seemed very energized by it. You can watch what Chris Sumo said, Myogiryu said in the interview. But it's interesting that he would try that. That shows you that he's not done. If you're a veteran guy and you're kind of struggling and you've never gone to practice sessions before, you going to practice sessions means something.
Teach an old dog new tricks.
Right. He at least has the hunger enough to want to be better. And, it's probably some of that Saitama Sakai pride,
A little bit.
little bit like, I gotta be the man, you know? I've been used to being the man. So that tells me that he's probably in a way better position than Chiyotairyu, but I do think he's waning. His energy is getting zapped. So we're going to have to see if he can overcome that. Yeah,
I mean, I'd agree that Myogiryu feels it to be in a better place than Chiyotairyu, but they're both a similar story, that they're nearing the end of their rope. It does seem that Myogiryu is trying to mix it up, trying to keep the playbook different, which is, I would agree, always good to see. And never count out the veterans.
Right.
Veteran on a bad day will still be a youngster on a good day.
Exactly.
He's only had one winning record for a calendar year.
Wow.
It was an 8-7. So
Yikes.
similar to Okinoumi, he's on the watch list.
He's on the watch list.
It's just it's good to see that he's fighting the watch list rather than
just so slowly
just fading out into the sunset.
Exactly. Speaking of fading, this is a hard one. Endo. Mr. Myogiryu 1 East, Mr. Amazing Match with Terunofuji, possibly in it for the cup. Dreams of Endo Yokozuna that should have been 5 years ago. Gets injured, falls all the way down to Myogiryu 11 East. And he's one of those guys that either he has lots of nagging injuries that we don't know about, or he suffers greatly mentally when he has an injury. Like, he doesn't just recover like some guys do. Some guys are like, this is going to be it. I'm going to fight back from this. Like, I don't see Endo going down to the 4th division and come back up. No. I see Endo as the guy that if that happened, he'd be done. He'd go off and, like, model or something. Or, like, hang out with his fans. So, I think this is a very bad sign that he's in 11 East and that he got this injury. Doesn't mean it's, like, the end of his career, but I don't know. Something doesn't feel good about this situation.
Rough to go down 10 spots for any reason. Even Kotoeko went down 7. There was a bit of a hammer down on Endo for some reason. Now he was effectively 1 in 14, so it's not unprecedented. At the same time, there was a little bit of, well, you better do something then, and so that's where the concern is that even if he was at Endo's best, it's still that weird brand of mediocre, but with flashes of brilliance. Exactly. And we're not sure if that formula is the kind of thing that you can claw yourself out of a pit.
Right, and these rankings don't come out of a vacuum. Like, they have motivations for why they do certain things. So you have to kind of ask yourself, why did Endo go to 11 East? Why did he drop that far? Is there something they know that we don't know, or something that they want to see that we don't know that they want to see? I don't know what will happen with Endo. Like you said, when we see a guy who fights himself right back up, because he doesn't seem like that type. Or is he can just keep dropping?
It's, something else, and this is sort of the other side of the coin. He gets an 8-7, and he's fine again. He gets a 9-6, and, he's 8 West, 9 East. So, where if he keeps performing badly, he's going to be knocking on Juryo's door. At the same time, he only needs one good match. He only needs one good tournament to stay where he is.
Fair point.
And the concern is that he'll never get that same tournament, and that comes down to the Endo that shows up to fight.
Right.
And now, also, Endo fighting between 4 and 8
should be a good thing.
Yeah. So, like, if his competition is going to be like poor Kaisei or Tochi Notion or stuff like that,
he's gonna win those.
He's gonna win those. Well, he should win those.
But if you're looking at, you're saying he had between 5 and 8.
Yeah.
He could lose to Takarafuji. He could lose to Ura. If he's not in good shape, he could lose to Onosho. He could lose to Shimanoumi. I think he'd beat Terutsuyoshi. I think he'd beat Okinoumi. Tobizaru, Aoiyama. I'd say there's probably more guys he can beat than not beat.
Exactly. So Endo putting together a passable performance will let him tread water if nothing else.
Yeah, so maybe it's not as doom as I fear.
Well, when you get thrown down that far, you're just like, oh boy, like...
With an injury.
Yeah.
Because, like, if it's just a bad tournament, you bounce back, and when it's an injury, and you don't know if it's going to be healed, that's like a danger spot.
Yes.
So next we have poor Kotoeko. Went down from Maegashira 4 East to Maegashira 11 West, 2-13. He just looked outclassed. He's not strong enough for the upper level competition. And he looks strong. He's got definition, muscles on top of muscles, but he's not heavy, so he doesn't have the bulk muscle. He probably can do all these super cool moves that nobody else can do, but he's just not strong enough, and I don't know what it would take for him to change that.
There's the short term and the long term. The long term for Kotoeko is and has been for us a question mark. Because we know there's potential. We know that if he can navigate this sea of trouble, that there'll be something for him. For the short term, if Kotoeko can take the positives from July and then just push the rest behind him, he can say that he fought the best of the best. He had a fight with Hakuho that he was winning for a half second. He, fought Terunofuji, fought Mitakeumi, Takayasu. Yeah. So, if he can say, I fought everybody, and I, learned from them, he's just, he could be I got this whole list of things I gotta work on now, and he just spent 2 months doing that.
Very possible.
This is the Kotoeko fan talking, by the way.
Of course.
But, at the same time, if he just filled out a list full of things that he didn't know how to fix, then...
That's a different list.
So, there's a little bit of how much will he learn from what happened to him in July.
Right, and there's a lot of factors that we don't know the answers to, what kind of coach does he have? What kind of experience does he have? Yeah, I don't even know what...
He is part of the Sato Gatake stable, which has... Kotonowaka.
Oh.
Koto Shoho.
Okay, well, Koto Shoho is having a bad time.
Yeah, he's his own story.
Okay, so Kotonowaka, that's encouraging.
Yeah, so there's some good people. There's some Akushita too. So he's got decent people. Whatever Kotonowaka's doing, if Kotoeko can get half of that, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we were talking about getting energy from your teammates now for
exactly.
For Terunofuji, it's certainly a horse of a different color, but for this, it's still fight a little harder to help Kotonowaka because he's about to get into the big stuff.
Right, so something could come of it. He did not look good. We can hope that it was just an oh no show. But there is a huge question mark over him. I do think that he could beat plenty of the guys above him. I just don't know, like you said, long term, short term, can he ever really go any higher than that? So, speaking of which, Mr. Inconsistent himself, Ishiura, 12 East, up from Maegashira 16 West, 9-6. Ishiura has been an up and down guy the entire time I've seen him. When I first saw him, he was the only small man in sumo, and he was doing some pretty super cool things. Next thing you know, he's hanking too much. Everybody reads the hanka and they fling him out. And then he spends all this time in Juryo, and Enho comes up while Ishiura is trapped in Juryo. Now it's sort of reversed itself, and Ishiura is back, and Enho is trapped in Juryo. And we're starting to see the techniques that Ishiura can do. He has a lot of tricks. But it really does come down to applying them properly. Knowing when to do the leg pick, when to do the henko, when to do this, when to do that, not to make it stale.
Ishiura was starting to do that in July. And he was also, we're talking about tiny jack dudes.
Yeah.
Ishiura was the original tiny jack dude, and this,
But he's more jack now.
He put that muscle on, and then he used it, which was great to watch. If the Ishiura who got that 9-6 can keep that momentum going, he may do something with that. Now, I feel Ishiura will invariably hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
A little bit. I don't know if Ishiura will ever break the top 5 in his current state.
It's a shame because I think that he could be very, very interesting fighting some of the young guys. But it's possible he's already fought them in Juryo. So, and if that's the case, he probably lost to them in Juryo. But it would be interesting to see Ishihara fight some of the smaller, like, more prominent guys. Just to see what it would look like.
I would like to see Ishihara continue this pattern of success. I am hopefully wrong about there being a limit. At nothing else, it's good, as you had mentioned, to see him buck the trend of either not being able to figure himself out or other people figuring him out.
Right.
And so, more of that, please.
Now we go to another heartbreak. Tochinoshin, 12 West. Only down from Maegashira 12 East. He had a 7-8. He really fought at the end to try to preserve.
Tooth and nail.
And it's obvious that they are trying to be generous with him. Mm-hmm. They could have made... I mean, it was a 7-8, but they could have done a bigger drop considering that he's really struggling to get wins. We are seeing the end of him. It's just a matter of how long will he hold on. I mean, I don't even know if he can get a winning score again.
I don't... Well, this could be the last time. Like, we can officially start saying that now. It sucks. Well... For the top division, maybe he's
like, okay with going in Juryo.
He could be like Sadanoumi or Shohozan, that he'll just stay in Juryo for another year and a half and just throw around people who don't know how to deal with him grabbing the belt. So
right,
Juryo could sort of be his second lease on life, and maybe he'll pop a little bit. We'll be like, oh, that guy. But anyway, for now, Tochinoshin does need to start winning. And if nothing else, no more. You're done with double-digit losses.
Yeah, you're.
If you get a 5-10 at this point, it's bad. Like a 6-9 is already pretty bad as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be given that many more chances. No. If he keeps pulling a 7-8, they might drop him 1. They might be that generous with him. But if it gets any worse, especially with being that low, he's just done.
He's done.
So. I don't have much to say about it. We know that he's working on busted knees that are never going to heal, so we're just watching the clock tick and enjoying what we can of him.
Yep.
So, we'll move on. Next, we have Kageaki, 13 East, down from 12 West, 7-8. He looks like a very lost fighter out there.
He needs to adapt to this surrounding. He's been... Whatever formula got him up there isn't working anymore. He needs a new formula. Maybe he just needs to tweak the existing formula. Maybe he needs to work on distance management or footwork or dealing with people with breach his belt. He needs something. And so, here's another... Well, they're not quite pairing, but like Tochinoshin and Kageaki, but they're both going down. We're looking at them and just like, you're the only person who can get yourself out of this.
Right. But Kageaki isn't working on busted wheels, so it's like, in theory, you just keep waiting for the moment where he breaks out of it, but it hasn't happened. And he doesn't look any better from tournament to tournament. He just looks really lost.
Yeah. He was up there pretty close, like 4 or 5, and we're looking at him, we're like, man, he's built up a head of steam for himself, and then he starts tumbling, getting a 7-8 at 12 West
is not a good sign.
That's a warning sign. I mean, he's as much on the red list as any of the veterans that we've been keeping an eye on. Because we're looking at them, we're like, you better turn it around, buddy.
Yeah.
And if Kageaki goes down and doesn't come back up, it feels like a loss. Like there was something he could have brought to us that he just couldn't get it out.
Right, and we have no idea what's going on. He knows, we don't. So I guess we'll have to just keep an eye out. That's when we actually look, because if you don't look, you may never see him again.
Never see him again.
So next we have Tsurugisho, up from Maegashira 15 East, so he got out of the danger zone. But he only goes up to 13 West, so he's still in the danger zone. He's still got to have a decent tournament. It's
a yellow light, not a red light.
Yeah. So, Tsurugisho... he's sort of fighting himself in a way. Like, he has these goals, and he wants to achieve these goals. I'm not sure exactly where he's looking to aim. I don't think he's aiming super high, but he's aiming to be a competitive wrestler, and it seems like maybe he gets in his own head.
A bit. I had compared him to Hidenoumi before, and they both need that figuring out something. And for Tsurugisho, he just needs to figure out a way to be stable, to stop fighting himself, to sort of be more confident in his technique. It feels
like he was when he was doing good.
Yeah. So maybe he's sort of a mental momentum kind of a thing, that if he does well or if he gets some good matches, that he can sort of just build the confidence. But if he's floundering a little bit, maybe he sort of gets in his own head. It's going to suck if he has to go. But
he's already been down in Juryo and back up, so he probably doesn't want that, but he's at least more familiar with it than some of these guys. So next we have one of your favorites that I do think we have to worry about. And that's Kaisei. He is down from Maegashira 11 East to Maegashira 14 East, 6 and 9. Like you said with Kageyaki, you get a 6 and 9 at Maegashira 11 East, that's not a good sign.
No, he's out of second chances, I think. He was slowly over the past few months building up a bit of a buffer, and now he's cut it out. So you need to start building again.
Right, there's no buffer.
No more buffer. Now, it's like if he gets a 7 and 8, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it seems that if you got a 7 and 8 and you were fighting well enough and nobody else in Juryo really put up a fight, they'll keep you around. But if we have a good crop of people coming from Juryo and Kaisei...
That's an issue, yeah.
And Kaisei gets another 6 and 9, that's a sayonara.
Yeah, and I don't know if he'll be able to work his way back up. Because he's got a lot of injury problems.
Neck injuries, too, like we were mentioning. That's a big one.
Neck is not an easy thing to recover from. I mean, it's one of the more sensitive parts of your body, and you can't do anything without your neck, let alone fight. I mean, come on, fighting with a busted neck? I can't imagine this. So, keep both eyes on Kaisei.
Kaisei...
Hit the record button.
Kaisei and Tochinoshi, the both of them, we have to soak in their beautiful hairy bodies for as long as we can, because
one day we're going to turn it on and they're not going to be there anymore. So next we have Mr. Rebound, Yu Takayama. Juryo 1 East, finally back into the upper division, 14 West, with a 10 and 5. He's had just a rough career. He is much better than his ranking, but injuries mixed with whatever else, a combination of the two, because I think injuries are the main problem. But some people can be injured and stay in. The injuries are killing him. He keeps getting knocked down to Juryo. He keeps underperforming. Is this the new start? Are we going to really see something this time?
This is, like, we were talking about, like, new page. Like, for Yu Takayama, we're like, close the old book.
Burn it.
Burn it. Forget the past. Let's rebuild here and now. And good... I feel terrible saying this. I'm going to. Good news for Yu Takayama. By next tournament, he's very likely going to surpass his rival.
Yeah?
So take that for what it is.
You know, it might not be under the best circumstances, but he did want to surpass his rival. He no longer has to look at Asanoyama in the Ozeki slot.
I don't. There's maybe a little negative energy there, but I mean, at this point, Yu Takayama, you need the positives. You need to start building things.
Right. It's not said from a place of negativity. It's said from a place of positivity. Like, okay, if you get rid of the old book, you have a chance to, like, even forget about your rival. Forget about your rival surpassing you. That's not a factor right now. Try something new. Get somewhere. It's
a new road. It's a new beginning. Just start from here. Leave it all behind. And so, if we were talking about Ozeki candidates this time last year, Yu Takayama may have been on that list. We'd be like, oh, maybe keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I mean, he has the skill set for it.
And so, like, that's where interesting things are. Is that if he can build that, if he can keep the injury demons at bay, if whatever doubt he's dealt with, like if you come back from Juryo, you've got to at least put the doubt away. And it was a bit of a sucker punch for Yu Takayama, because last time he got passed up for Ichiyamamoto.
Yeah.
But now this time around, he's just like, he says with a 10 and 5, you don't do that to me.
And not only that, he's a rank ahead of Ichiyamamoto this time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you got to take these little things and run with them.
Little things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for him. He actually was one of my favorites. See, there's a pattern here. I should just say I hate the guys who I love so that these bad things will stop happening. Yu Takayama was, like, back when it was Yu Takayama and Asanoyama, Yu Takayama was my guy. I really, really liked him, and he just kept falling just sort of out of radar because he was always injured. But I'm rooting for him. If Terunofuji can come back from Division 5, or was it Division 5 or was it Division 4?
About far down as you can go.
About as far down as you can go. Yu Takayama, you can come back from just Juryo. So, I'm rooting for him. Or, I'm not rooting for him. And we'll see where he takes this. So, Ichiyamamoto, he did rise up from Maegashira 17 East to 15 East. I did find it extremely funny that Yu Takayama got put ahead of him.
Like you say, people do the Banzuke. There's things at work here.
It's all done very, very much for a reason. There's no coincidence or accidents. He was 8-7, but whatever. You're in the upper division. You're getting yourself comfortable. He did what he had to do, and that's what's important. So,
that's 5-loss lose streak.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
So he was 7-2.
Uh-huh.
And then nearly loses it.
And Tochinoshin was one of the ones he lost to?
Yeah. Tochinoshin fighting tooth and nail for that rank. So, like, I was so on board the Ichiyamamoto train, and we had a lot of discussion earlier on about, they put him up, and then there's the discussion about the older guy who joined sumo, all this stuff going in, and we're like, who cares? Let's watch him fight. And the first week, I'm like, this guy's great. And then the he goes 7-4, 7-5, 7-6.
And you're like,
no! I just started liking him. Why does everything I touch get ruined? But now we're like, okay.
Now you start over.
Now it's just like, that's the freshman jitters out of the way. Welcome to the top division. You've had your welcoming party, so now you can just settle down and beat everybody in sumo.
Well, it'll be interesting to see his fight with Yu Takayama.
Oh?
I feel like there's going to be some extra...
a little bit. They're building something there.
So, next we have Chiyonoho. Down from Maegashira 14 West to 15 West, 7 and 8. What's your take on that?
So there's these bottom 4 people, all were sort of spared through some.
They could have all been in Juryo.
They could have all been in Juryo. So for Chiyonoho, it sort of sucks because you could tell there's really good stuff there. He just had trouble putting it together. So I'm really keeping an eye on Chiyonoho. Because I'm hoping, similar to Ichiyamamoto, that they've gotten their jitters, their nerves worked through, and so starting from here, we can really see what they're about. And as is the case with both of them as well, that if they can't figure that out the second time around, then you get to take a trip down a block. So Chiyonoho with the 7 and 8, it wasn't as bad as some of the others, and that he was. So he was at 14 West with a 7 and 8. So you're just you're probably okay, but you're
on the edge.
You're on the edge, and also you are starting to rely on Juryo a little bit. I'm looking forward to seeing what Chiyonoho can do. I felt like it took him a little while, but then he sort of showed his sumo spirit, and I was like, "You're special. I'm gonna like this." But just he's, as far as there is that sort of that stay of execution that he got, even though he was less likely than others to get demoted. There is, like you say, that okay, now show me.
Right, you got a little bit of a reprieve here. Now it's time to take it a little serious, and because next time you're not going to get another chance.
You're not gonna.
These 4 guys you're talking about, they're not getting saved again.
No, and this is. Also, another thing that happens is that they'll keep an eye on this, and there is it's sort of you throw people up, and then you expect them, you give somebody a bit of an over promotion, you prove, Kotonowaka,
right.
Prove it, and then somebody like Endo, they give him sort of I would call an over demotion, and then they're
you're good enough that you should be fine.
You'll be fine. We'll put you down there, but it's not because you're bad. It's just because we know you'll bounce back.
Exactly.
And so then, like, I'm fully expecting Endo to get like an 8-7 or a 9-6, and then he'll be like 8 or 7.
Right, just sort of do his incremental thing.
Yeah, so he's going to pull it back up. Or that's what they're telling him that he needs to do.
Right.
The layers of stuff going on here that I'm not going to pretend to fully fathom. So that's what it is for Chiyono, at least.
So, speaking of which, we have Chiyomaru, 16 East, down for Maegashira, 13-9, 6-9. Chiyomaru really is a Juryo fighter at this point.
Yeah.
So they're just letting him have some fun. Because he was in Juryo for a while, and then he miraculously got himself back up. I do think this is his last chance, like, period. I think, unless he gets the Juryo 1 spot or something, which I don't think will happen, I think he's either going to crash out or he's going to do what he needs to do. Because he really is a Juryo quality fighter at this point, which is sad because I really like him and he's one of the first wrestlers I saw when I started watching, but time has caught up to him and I don't expect much more time with him.
Yeah. He is definitely out of lifelines. So I'd say another 7 at him, and he's probably on the way down, unless Juryo is that bad. Taking a peek at the first few rungs of Juryo,
it ain't that great. Juryo looks like it got decimated. Juryo looks like the Ozeki rank, okay?
Yeah, we'll give it a look in a bit. But Chiyomaru, the 6 and 9 was a bit risky. If other people did better, he'd definitely be out. But I would agree, like, this may be the last time that lime green belt is in the top division, which sucks a little bit. But towards your point, it's not that he's fading. It's just that he's a Juryo fighter now, so that's his level, which means that he'll be great in Juryo. He'll do well. Maybe he'll make a little pop up. Maybe when there's an odd number of people, he'll sort of do the guest fight at 17. So those are the kinds of things to look forward to. There's a few people here. We'll talk about it a bit.
Yeah, we'll get into those guys. I mean, there are new guys coming in, but basically the steadfastness is... Okay, so next is Tokushoryu, down from Maegashira, 15 West. Now he's 16 West, 7 and 8. These guys really did do what they needed to do. All these 7 and 8s at the bottom.
Yeah.
Tokushoryu is in the same stable as Ura. So you would think that maybe there'd be this sort of combined energy. If Ura's doing good, maybe Tokushoryu will. You know, he is the largest ballerina ever. And he's pretty cool. You know, he's pretty talented. But he is, at this point, only got a couple of tricks. You know, like, when he did what he did to win the Yusho, I really do think that was, like, his big moment. And anything after that is just sort of, like, bonus.
It's bonus.
So, I'm not expecting much beyond somebody who's trying to keep their career going.
Yeah. I mean, we sort of knew this from the beginning, but we were we gave an eye and, like, maybe he'll do something with this. But then when he didn't, we're just like, it's fine. He got what he wanted. And he's still fun to watch. I really thought that Tokushoryu was going to get dumped for Mitoryu, who won the Juryo Cup. And Mitoryu, I believe, was Juryo 8 or so. And I'm like, well, they gave that to Ichi Yamamoto. They'll give it to him.
Yeah.
Mitoryu is now Juryo 1 East.
There's some reason why they did that.
Tokushoryu was probably saved by his tooth and nail fighting to get that 7 and 8.
Right. Had he not done what he'd done... They would have just swept him out, and also they're sort of giving him you won the Yusho, we're going to give you one last chance. And also, maybe Mitoryu, they weren't pushing his agenda like they were pushing Ichi Yamamoto's. I'm speculating now, but needless to say, I will be more than pleased to see another round of Tokushoryu, and this can give him another chance to get an 8-7, extend at least a little bit maybe. We don't know. Like, I can see an 8-7 at Tokushoryu. Yeah, it's possible.
Like, you know, Chiyomaru... Probably not. Kaisei, probably not. Tokushoryu, he's got it in him.
Yeah, I agree with you. If anybody in this bottom tier is going to make a move, it's going to be him. Or our next guy, who is the final guy in the upper division. Chiyonokuni, 17 East, down for Maegashira, 16 East, 7 and 8. I did not expect him to stay in the upper division.
So Tokushoryu was a minor surprise. And that was sort of like, okay, you know, they don't want to jump him up too much. Chiyonokuni was a huge surprise. A very pleasant surprise. Because I felt like he was robbed a little bit.
Yeah.
On his return. And we were talking before about we need this guy to come in with Daieisho a little bit. That little extra week, come in fresh, hit it hard and heavy. Chiyotairyu was fighting very tentatively in July.
Yeah.
And he sort of just like squeaked by with the 7 and 8. And I think that they know, like we do, that Chiyotairyu has a lot to offer.
Right.
And the option was to put in Mitoryu or Akua, who I thought were going to be the two people that were going to be there instead of Tokushoryu and Shonokuni, or give Tokushoryu his little last moment in the sun and give Shonokuni give him like a lean.
Well, especially because he worked so hard from injury as well to come all the way back from lower divisions. So it would be a shame for it to end that quickly, especially because his issues are the same issues, which is injury.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. He sort of is the new Ikiyoi.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, somebody had to take that role, so that's Chiyotairyu. He's not as beat up as Ikiyoi, but, he fights so rough. He picks up new injuries every tournament. So I'm not going to make a guess on what's going to happen with him, because
hard to say.
It could go either way. It's just a matter of will his body stay together. But he is one of my least favorite people in the world. So, I hope he does terrible this tournament. Wink, wink. And that does conclude the upper division. We do have some Juryo, especially like we just brought up this conversation.
Yeah. So, yeah, the big thing for me was that Mitoryu and Akua got passed over. Akua was, I think, 8 and 7 at like 2 West, and then they put him in the 1 West. And then Mitoryu was at 8 and won the Yusho, and usually that sort of gives you the pole vault up. They decided both of them get to be at the top of Juryo instead. And, I mean, more bad luck for Akua, but for Mitoryu, there's a certain amount of logic to that.
They do that
and
frequently.
I think Ichiyamamoto is more of the exception than the norm. It just sort of sucks to be the norm after the exception.
Right, exactly. Though, so if we're looking at these guys, Daiamami is a veteran. Kyoku Taisei.
Juryo guy. Wakamoto Haru.
Now, isn't he Wakatakakage's brother?
Yes, Wakamoto Haru is Wakatakakage's brother. Wakamoto Haru is making a run for it.
Yeah, so keep an eye on him. Sanoumi is a veteran. Shohozan's a veteran. Kaisho is the new thing, isn't he?
Kaisho is one of the new...
He was at the practice sessions.
He was 11 and 4 in July.
Yeah, so he's another one that...
Yep. So he was Juryo 13 and then got 11 wins. So they pole vaulted him up to Juryo 4, which is in striking distance. So Wakamoto Haru, Kaisho, and
Abi.
5 East, Abi.
Abi is gonna wreck.
So
okay?
the thing is that Abi has been wrecking since the moment he came back, because he's basically a Sanyaku in Division 3.
Exactly.
So, and now he's a Sanyaku in Division 2, and now soon enough he's going to be Sanyaku in Division 1. So I look at Abi specifically, and then maybe Kaisho and Mitoryu and Wakamoto Haru. There's a bunch of maybes in these top 5s, but one person's coming up to Juryo next tournament, and that's going to be Abi.
Yeah.
So
barring an injury, because I think I heard he got injured the last tournament, but I don't think it was a serious one. So I'm going to assume it's not a problem, but I can't see a scenario in which Abi does not come back immediately.
It's going to be getting him back up.
I can't wait for that.
So March is going to be crazy, because November he's back up. January, he's mid, and then March is when he's going to be picking fights with Hoshoryu up top.
We haven't seen him for so long, but before, he was somebody who could have been challenging for... I don't know if he was Ozeki material, but...
He was working on it.
Maybe he is now. Maybe after all this fighting and all this waiting, and maybe the hunger is so great... it just depends on what kind of shape he's in, because he's been fighting these lower level guys for a while now. I can't wait to see him in the upper division and see how he does with the competition he hasn't seen. And has it been a full year yet?
It would be about a year, because he had a 6-month suspension, and then he's been fighting the last few tournaments to get back up here. So
right, so it'll be about a year when he finally returns. Let's see if he's lost any strength fighting these lower guys, or if he's just going to come in and upset the entire system.
So, sort of good news, sort of bad news, but Enho and Midorifuji didn't fall out of Juryo like we were afraid they were, but they're down at 11. Both of them, we want them back. but
they're just not in the state.
They're not in a good state.
Terunofuji is a shame because that hernia is not going to go away. He really needs to get surgery. I mean, that's the truth. So what's he going to do? Fight the rest of his career with a hernia and never actually get anywhere?
It's a rough.
That's
time.
where sumo is the worst because you just can't get injured. If you get injured, your choices suck. You either drop all the way down and see if you have the fortitude to come back up, or you fight injured your entire career and maybe never get to where you could because you're injured.
Yep.
Well, that is just crap.
It's crap. So, by the way, if you were curious about how 9 West is completely empty, that is because Takagenji has been purged from the ranking.
Just purged from the system. They just left a black space.
This is weird. Usually they'll have you there and then they'll be like retired, but
they were trying to make a statement with that.
This black spot is bizarre, and that is we don't like this.
Yeah, I think they were sending a clear message like, don't mess around.
Don't mess around. We're done with that.
All I can say is Takanohana, his proteges, they're all getting wiped right out.
Wiped out. But the ones that survive are seeming to do okay.
Yeah.
Seeming.
We'll see how it goes. So, we do need to do a prediction.
Okay.
Even though it's like, what the heck? So, I know the obvious is Terunofuji, so I want to do a non-obvious because otherwise it's going to get really boring if we just say Terunofuji every single tournament, even though it's very probable. So, I'm going to pick somebody way out. And that's going to be... And I can't say Hakuho either. I don't know what that crazy guy's going to do.
May not even be here.
Can I throw... This is the tournament for Takayasu.
Oh, I was going to say that.
No.
Now I got to say something else. So... Interesting how both of us are reflexively going for Terunofuji over Hakuho. Now, part of this is because we don't expect Hakuho to be here. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I think if Hakuho does show up, that Terunofuji is going to beat him.
Oh, yeah. Hakuho is greatly diminished. He just was riding on some crazy adrenaline. So,
that alone is quite an interesting tell between those two. Because this, if this rivalry has any legs, the two of these guys are really good.
I hope it has a little bit more.
It would be interesting to see this too. So, I mean, my heart does go to Takayasu. I'm not going to say Hokutofuji. I'm going to think it every single time until he loses 7 losses, sometimes in the first week. Let's see. So this would be, I usually go for the chaos picks. I'm gonna skip that. If COVID doesn't mess with them, Ichinojo is going to take it.
Well, that's a great pick.
So Kamasubis are our pick this time. East or West?
That's a great pick.
So I feel that, and again, like this is just like my Ichinojo fan coming out, and I'm just terribly sorry about the whole neck business. I swear it won't happen again. But if it like hitting Sanyako for Ichinojo, it's either going to be all stop or all go. Right. And if it is all go, I want to see that go. And I can see him now. 10-5. The 10-5, you're not going to win anything with that. But if he just starts pushing people over like bowling pins,
he needs this though. He needs somebody to take a win off of Terunofuji because he's never beaten Terunofuji.
Correct.
He's way too soft on him. So Takayasu could play a factor in this if he takes a win off of Terunofuji. That's what Ichinojo needs. A little help.
He'll need a little help.
Takayasu needs a little help too. Like, Takayasu is capable of getting the wins he needs, but he needs somebody to knock these guys down. I don't know that he's not a Zensho Yusho guy. Hoshoryu. Well, help is on the way.
I'm just saying. I mean, he's not Hoshoryu's no fairy godmother, but I'm pretty sure he can grant some wishes if you want him to beat up Yokozuna for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty to prove and nothing to lose, so.
Yeah.
I really hope this is a crazy tournament where we don't know what's going to happen till the end, because the last one we knew it was going to come down to Hakuho and Terunofuji.
It was fine. Like, that kind of, like, two trains on the same track.
It was meant to be when it happened.
It was like that felt like there was no other outcome that was acceptable in July.
Exactly.
So I guess for the same reason, if that happens again, the exact same way, the exact same show, will be like,
It's like, what is this, like 10 years ago? Come on, we're in the chaos years of sumo.
Well, it'll be weird because then it feels like we have to wait 14 days to see how the trains collide, rather than not knowing what's going to happen.
Which is what we've been used to for like 2 years now. Yeah, I'm just not used to like a predictable outcome. So I hope that it's chaotic, and I hope we have a good time.
There was so much in this first half of the Banzuke. And so like beforehand it was a little bottom heavy, it felt like. There was a lot of stuff going on lower. And part of this was because we had the weird floundering Ozeki issues, and also because it was Hako and Terunofuji, and then everybody that they were beating up. And then it was like lower on in the bottom part that the interesting things were happening, and now we're tilting back upwards. That a lot of people were talking about lower down, or like oh, Danes are, our watch list for people falling out, and then like we're looking at the top area here, and we're like, oh, there's gonna be a scrap.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if anything else, get like 20, 21 of these people up here on the top. We're gonna keep an eye on them. It's like, you could change everything,
and we're here for it.
It'll be fun.
Well, we will hear from you all at the conclusion of the tournament, but it does start on Sunday, September 12th. So be there and enjoy.
Thank you for listening.
Peace.